Much Daktari Kiniti, ndugu yangu, pole sana kwa mambo ambayo Rais Moi alikutendea. Najua kwamba alijaribu kukuua karibu mara 6, lakini tunashukuru Mungu kwamba uko hai. I'm here, first of all, to declare that I have a biblical mandate as a Christian leader in view of Proverbs 31:8 that says, speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. There are so many Kenyans that cannot come to the media. So many Kenyans that cannot march and occupy parliament, like our colleagues are doing today in Nairobi. We are here in Nakuru. There are so many Kenyans that cannot write a thing. So many Kenyans that cannot be on social media. So many young people that are impoverished. So many workers, like my brother has said, that do not have a voice, whose businesses closed during COVID and nobody's thinking about them. So many women that have lost their children because they don't have medical care. Some have died while giving birth. There's so many things happening. Farmers who've lost harvests because this same government has sold them fake fertilizer. And instead of dealing with it, they have sanitized those who robbed the farmers. They've not refunded the farmers. So I speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, including persons living with disability who are supposed to be involved in public participation, but they've not had a chance to even see what this finance bill is all about. Previously, the Constitution has been put in Braille. This bill has not been put in Braille. We do not have people going to the villages. MCAs are not able to break this bill down to the people, so people don't know what is being passed. And so I join my colleagues in Nairobi and all over the country to say, we don't want a bill that people did not participate in. But also we don't want a bill that is oppressive. A bill that is going to increase the price of bread. The bill that is going to impose tax on cancer treatment. A bill that is going to make motorists, those who own cars, especially the middle class, not just to pay for the car when they import, but also to pay an extra tax. You know, you have tax on just about everything, including airtime, including, daily living has become so hard. And so we are here to speak on behalf of the people and say, we don't want it unless it is revised. We also ask, who wrote this bill for us? Who is this that sanctioned the suffering of Kenyans? Who has penned the finance bill? And I want to say with no hesitation, our biggest problem are the parliamentarians. The ones we have delegated power to, because sovereign power belongs to the people. But we have delegated power to parliamentarians, and instead of being watchmen, instead of saving the people they represent from this punitive and draconian bill, they sit there and, like an appendage of the executive, just pass and pass every law. In fact, the executive threatens them, saying, tuone nani hatapitisha. So we are here to say, on behalf of the people of Kenya, enough is enough. We don't want a punitive finance bill. We want a finance bill with the priorities of the people. We want a finance bill that takes care of food, that takes care of education. We want our children to go to school. We want a finance bill that will take care of hiring doctors and teachers, including the junior secondary school teachers that have been picketing. We want a bill that will take care of even the policemen that are suffering. How do you pay a policeman 18,000 shillings? Hapo ndio atoe rent, ndio atoe maisha, livelihood, school fees ya watoto. We want to call upon even the security organs, the policemen, badala ya kuharas wananchi tukipicket, join us, protect us, because you are suffering like everybody else. And I want to say to every Kenyan, we need to take our power back. We need our country back. We need our authority, our sovereignty back. We do not want someone imposing a bill that we did not write. And then lastly, I would say any budgetary allocation should also include the people that have worked for this government and have never been paid in the so-called pending bills. Watu wamekopa pesa, wamefanyia serikali za county na serikali kuu miradi, wamemaliza kazi, wengine wanajinyonga kwa sababu ya madeni. We are here to speak for them. We want to say you must include those pending bills in the budget before we can accept it. So we are here to speak on behalf of the people, and we will issue a comprehensive statement. My colleague will be able to issue that. And we want to say, even as media persons, operating as media is going to be so hard if this bill is passed. So we pray that God will take away this cup from us and give us a better country. And a word to the government, I would say it's time to stop living luxuriously, lavishly, as Kenyans die from hunger and all kinds of needs. Masafari kila mara, every day. Over 60 trips since this government came into power by the president himself. Hizi safari zote ndio zinafaa kulipa madaktari, ndio zinafaa kulipa wafanyikazi na kufungua biashara yao. People are moving businesses from Kenya into neighboring countries because of the greed amongst our leaders. We need a government that is people-centered, that values the issue of character. We want a value-based, servant, accountable leadership. And God bless you, and God bless Kenya. Take the appropriation first, because everyone rushes to question the appropriation without discussing what is being appropriated. Many times we hear that there is an appropriation, and yet, appropriations are made as budget proposals without looking at what it is we are funding. And so the problem is that we have experts around the president and around Kenya Kwanza that are not helping the president to actually view the budget and the proposals in view of the citizen needs. And so Parliament will certainly vote over certain proposals, but those proposals are based on what? So who came up with these proposals? What are the figures? And how do they propose to fund whatever it is they are proposing? You don't just come up with a 3.9 trillion budget without asking how you will generate the revenue, or without looking at the previous government expenditures and appropriations. So I would say the entire principle is wrong before you even get to discuss the appropriation as well as the bill. But secondly, the issue of borrowing. That is the elephant in the room, because there are three problems with this government as well as the previous government's approach to borrowing. First of all, we are supposed to borrow for development. The question is, can the previous government and the current government explain to us which projects were funded, how much, and what was achieved by which project? There is almost zero record in this particular regime of development programs with corresponding expenditure. So money borrowed is supposed to be spent on development. Which development? Instead, we hear scandal after scandal. Now, the second problem is that we have a lot of what we call odious debt. So money is spent, it's borrowed and spent, then citizens pay for what they never saw. Most of that money never actually comes into circulation here. A lot of the money is hidden in offshore accounts by our leaders. And people don't want to talk about this, but our leaders trade with our lives. They are merchants on hire. Actually, they've hired themselves. So they borrow and borrow and borrow, but keep putting in the pockets. That money, it never gets spent on citizens. That is a wrong way to do borrowing. And the last thing I would say about borrowing is this. For massive amounts of money to be committed to the country called Kenya, whether from China or from Bretton Woods institutions or whatever, who gives the mandate for our leaders to borrow in our name? Who says this is okay? And Parliament just sits there like a stooge, watching, you know? I'm saying it's the wrong way to do government. You don't go commit ourselves and our future, our children and their children, to incur debts they will never be able to pay. And so we say even the entire borrowing principle is wrong and it needs to be revised. We need to live within our means. That is our emphasis.